operate on public land.
Snow sports and all mountain recreation should not just be the exclusive purview of wealthy Americans. It should be something that's available to all Americans, irregardless of socioeconomic status.
The U.S. Forest Service explains that it has signed 40-year leases with 22 resorts in our state.
Providing public recreation opportunities is a primary objective of the Forest Service and our partnership with the ski areas. The business alliance that we have with ski areas are to provide these types of opportunities on public lands.
The leases include non-discrimination and equal access clauses, but the Forest Service says those clauses don't require them to ensure that the resorts remain affordable to the general public.
The business decisions of private businesses are their own decisions.
Those business decisions effectively block access to public land, says Arnman Coney, who in 1993 founded the Snowboard Outreach Society, which later grew into what's now seen as the hugely successful program to bring mountain sports to a diversity of youth, SOS Outreach.
When I started SOS 22 years ago, it was because I couldn't believe that there were guard gates at the entrances of national forest systems in order to go ski and snowboard. That's gotten worse. In order to go into Beaver Creek, you have to go through a guard gate. There's no other way around it. And that's a national forest.
Manconi, who resigned from SOS in 2014, is referring to this spot where the resort monitors vehicles coming and going. Beaver Creek calls it its welcome gate, but Manconi sees it as symbolizing the trappings of exclusivity of a sport that increasingly caters to the wealthy.
30-40 years ago, the ski industry was owned by smaller companies, or in many cases, just mom-and-pop operations. Right? Now this has become a publicly traded investment bankers game, with many of the resorts that are making most of the amount of revenues. And what they are seeing is they're losing market size and stealing market share. Right? That means there is not the same amount of people. Vail last year reported that they made more money off of less customers. Well, this is the 1% story. Okay? They're going after the people who have more money, who will buy things regardless if the price goes up 10%. And there isn't an incentive to go after families that are making less than $125,000 a year.
Vail Resorts declined our invitation to appear on this show, but said that despite the rising cost of lift tickets, over the past 8 years it has significantly reduced the cost of its pre-purchased season passes. Meanwhile, the Forest Service says that the ski resort land is open to anyone. It's simply an uphill battle. Literally. It says that anyone who wants to can simply climb up the slopes for free during certain hours.
A good example of public access is our uphill policies. So folks that enjoy skiing uphill, usually in the early morning hours, to get a nice workout, they're using their public lands, and then they're actually coming back down those same ski runs that they went up.
But climbing up the mountains, like this group is preparing to do, is popular with people who are already experienced skiers, and is certainly not recommended for novices like the Gilpin students or anyone else just getting acquainted with the slopes.
Something like this. One more thing now, you refer to this gate at Beaver Creek. What is that story?
That's right. So the founder of SOS Outreach, Arnman Coney, was very critical of that gate, saying it looks like a gated community. And so I looked into it a little bit, and Vail Daily, in fact, did a report about this gate back in 2011, the community editor of the paper, and they started by saying places with gates can be intimidating. Beaver Creek, which is also Vail Beaver Creek, resort officials realize some people might have the wrong perception. So there has been some debate about what is the purpose of this gate going into the resort. I called them up, Beaver Creek Public Safety, asked for an answer. The report in the newspaper says that it's part of the HOA Master Development Plan, sort of implying that it's part of the security detail for the
homeowners.
For the resort. I just want to know, if this is something that's a bit controversial, let's find out. Is this really blocking access, or is it simply a welcome gate, as they call it? In fact, Beaver Creek did not answer my question. I'm waiting on the response. They've had a few days, and hopefully that will be forthcoming.
And they are, meanwhile, I'm sure, interested in building this new generation of skiers and getting kids up there as much as they can.
That's right. Ultimately, building the skiing population is in the interest of the industry, of all of the resorts, and yet, as we see in the numbers, it's the number of skiers has been going down. The baby boomer generation were big skiers. They're not skiing as much anymore.
There's a lot of them have knee replacements now, and so.
That's right, but there's a big interest in building the number of the minority population in the States is growing enormously. That's a huge potential body of business for the ski industry, and yet it doesn't seem that the diversity, the socioeconomic diversity, the ethnic diversity of the skiing population is growing at this point, according to the numbers put out by the industry associations.
Thank you. Very interesting. Mary McCarthy. Well, you know, Colorado's high country attracts not only those drawn to the recreation and beauty there, but also those who want to live there full time. That can take some doing. It's not unusual for people to work 2 or 3 jobs and to travel long distances between where they can afford to live to their work in resort communities. And it affects not only people in the lowest paid service jobs, but also educated professionals in crucial areas like education and public safety. Our partners at the Glenwood Springs Post-Independent have been following the issue and how it affects the makeup of the community in a series in the